So how high are you? I'm wondering how high you are in elevation to where I was on
But
Saturday.
I don't want to be in a
miles from
like
the
that.
National Forest.
You're up fairly high then. Really.
Yeah. About 12 miles out of the Dalles, but it takes
Okay.
about 20
See?
minutes
I need
because
help.
3 miles of it's on the dirt.
Did you email me today about?
Yeah, because
I was like, well, I don't know anything about that. Do I?
said you didn't have your budget for it. So, do you have your budget?
Well, I brought what she gave me.
Okay, you're set there.
I thought maybe it was something in.
so some people, we emailed everybody in advance, and some people chose the PDF.
Right, and I think that.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. See, and then this is what she gave me yesterday. All that. I made notes. It's all fine. Now, do people have laptops with this thing or no?
You can, because the laptop will, if you have your budget on the laptop, you can have it.
Okay.
Whatever you would like, whatever
So
you're
that-
comfortable with.
Let's see where those cameras are.
They're
There's only
everywhere.
one camera.
It's gonna be your back.
Right.
So if you want your face showing, then you should probably start
I don't want my face
there.
showing.
Okay, and your back, you're
I
sitting.
was thinking over there might be safer for me. I'm a newbie, I'm a novice. I don't wanna just learn this.
Another reason not to come early. You got
Yeah.
Too many options. Where do I sit?
No, it's okay. I'm just, and
If
you
you
know
come
what?
late, there's only one chair at the table.
Yeah. Yeah, this will be better for me. Stay in the corner and be quiet. Do these usually start on time?
Yes.
Because I'm not that early.
We got about 10 minutes.
Yeah, I don't think that's early.
I don't either, but
Yeah, I don't either, so,
a lot of people come in.
Can I just say, you guys are you.
yeah.
Well, yeah, obviously. Okay. That's fine. I didn't know I was allowed to have drinks or I don't know how this works. Mute. Otherwise. Okay. Let's move this out. just in case.
Stace?
Thank you. And how are you? How's that? Unless someone's already sitting there. in the hospital.
I'll sit back here.
How are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good. Good to see you forever.
We're on a college tour, just got back this morning,
Oh, did
yeah. So,
you? The next one off.
I know already. I can't believe it.
Would be a little
Hi.
He wants to go far away,
bit-
yeah,
Where does he want to go?
anywhere
Oh.
that he can swim. Southern Colorado and Kansas. There's a little liberal,
Well,
there's a little
yeah,
liberal
I-
arts
I'm
school
on
there that has a great swim program.
Okay, so I'll see you in a month.
Yeah,
Does he like them?
Met somewhere along-
you know, the night before I was like, when we first got to town, I was like,
But not in person.
it's good experience,
Maybe
good
not.
practice talking to people.
We've had.
But by the end of the day, the next day, he was like, I didn't think I like it, and I love it. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, Yeah, you too.
It's like an hour flight from Wichita
Yeah.
to Denver,
We went to
and then
church
like
together.
a 2-hour flight to the Portland. Yeah, So it's not that
I was
bad.
a Kid in the church. and he was
Half a day.
older, so
You're half
I
a
ended
day
up
of
during
airfare by the time you.
And the secretary during the summer, so
Yeah.
anyway, it's a
Yeah.
small world.
Yeah.
Very small.
Right
Yeah.
forward.
Yeah,
He's
no,
on
so
the
he was,
committee that issued my paycheck,
so we'll see.
I'm
He's got,
grateful.
Arizona
That's the
spring
kind of
break
friend,
and he
yeah.
looked at
That's
several
right.
schools there.
For now, where I see him later in the-
He's excited. He's excited to swim somewhere. Go swim. All he cares about. Just wants to go out. I keep saying, you need to get an education too. I want to start to swim. To get an education.
No, not yet, but we will soon.
Hey.
So,
Hi.
yeah, so it's fun. It's fun. The next 6 months or so should be interesting. We'll see what happens.
No, we did not stay past, we were there till like 8, and then,
Yeah, how are you?
Jeff and Jill, they stayed quite a bit longer, and I know that the owners wanted to go. You can tell they're packed.
It's been busy.
So I was like, Jason, let's go, so I saw, there's a limit to their words. I'm tired.
Yeah.
So,
Good.
yeah, thank goodness we were not the last ones.
Hanging in there? Good.
Yeah.
Make your ear to pop.
But their wine is really good, the pine, 1918, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's really good. I finished it off last night. By myself. I was like,
I've never seen these tables in Harlem. Are these new? These tables? Yeah, yeah. It's been like 3 years since I've been in here. Chairs, the chairs. Uh-huh. Yeah, it's really nice. When did you do this? I'm like, it feels like it's been years since I've been here because it has been years. Yeah. So it's,
So I was like, so I have to taste it. I'm like,
yeah, yeah. Wonderful.
yeah, likewise.
I really know the Jack. Are you? At least. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, yeah. And you may.
Wow.
Yes, ma'am. You guys are all. Works out. I don't know.
Before we get started, they need to turn the microphones on prior to the meeting. We left them on. For the minutes.
So Paula or Alice, can you tell me, I can't see who all's in the room with you. Do we have everyone now? Can I start the meeting?
Don't yet have everyone, but we certainly have a majority.
I couldn't quite make that out.
We're missing 4 right now.
Missing 4. Okay.
In the household.
Looks like someone is joining online, so I'm just going to wait another minute and then we'll get started. And if people join us, maybe we'll catch them at the end of the roll call. Okay, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Columbia Gateway Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee to order. Our first order of business is for Paula to call the roll.
Diana Bailey,
Present.
Joe Barcott.
Here.
Stacey Coburn,
Present.
Tracy Dujic. Present. Forrest Ercole,
Present.
Deborah Ferrer. Lindsay Jermaine. Sandy Haverhill,
Here.
Leanne Lewis,
Here.
Darcy Long,
Here.
Wendy McLaughlin, Dean Meyerson, Doug Nelson,
Here.
Dan Richardson,
Here.
Shannon Saldivar,
Here.
Kathy Schwartz.
Here.
Leon Server. And Ben Reed.
Here.
Thank you, Paula. I would like to ask our Vice Chair, Kathy Schwartz, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
United
of
States of
America,
America,
to the republic for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one
nation,
nation,
under God,
under God.
liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kathy. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do is we, as a budget committee, need to elect a chair to run the meeting and a secretary. And we will start with the chair position. All you need to do is run the meeting. The staff can go through the actual budget. And so I will take nominations, either nominate others or you can self-nominate.
Who's done it before?
I've done it before. I'm happy to do it if no one else wants to, but I wanted to open that up to whoever would like to.
I nominate Darcy Long.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded for Darcy Long as,
Excuse me, Chair Long?
yes, yes.
I did, Tracy.
Thank you.
Sorry, Paula. So I've been nominated as the chair. Are there any other nominations? Going to close the nominations. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so I will chair this meeting. Now we need a secretary. Our wonderful staff person Paula is going to take the minutes for us. So the secretary simply needs to look through the minutes that Paula takes, make sure that they're accurate, and sign them at the conclusion of the budget meeting or meetings. Do I have a nomination for secretary? It's a very easy job.
Tracy Dujic, I can do that.
Do I have a second? Sorry, I talked over who seconded that.
Doug Nelson seconded.
Thank you. Any other nominations? I'm going to close the nominations. All in favor of Tracy Dujic as secretary, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, congratulations, Tracy. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and turn the meeting over to our director, Alice Cannon, for the budget officer's message.
Good evening. Hear me well enough here, but if you can't, let me know. Good evening, Chair and members of the budget committee. Nice to be here for this once-a-year meeting. I'm going to share my screen now. This is my second year as the renewal manager, community development director at the city. I started last year with a budget message that I did on PowerPoint. What this does is gives you an overview about the urban renewal programs as well as the goals that have been previously. At last month's meeting, the Urban Renewal Board established some goals for the next fiscal year. So I'm going to outline those for you. And also you'll get a bit of an update on some of the projects we've been working on over the past year as well. Certainly, when we get to the end of this or even in the middle, feel free to ask me any questions that you might have. Then from there, the plan will be to go into more detail, into the fine-grained detail inside this budget. And
Excuse me, Alice.
again,
I
Chair.
think we've got some feedback, maybe because of the microphone and then maybe the microphone on your laptop as well.
You also need the microphone closer.
You still hear feedback, Chair Long?
Nope, it's much clearer now. Thank you.
Start sharing the screen again. Okay, good evening. As I said earlier, this will be an overview of the big picture of urban renewal, what it is, and also some of the goals that have been previously established by our Urban Renewal Board. Our Urban Renewal Board is composed of 3 council members with the City of the Dalles, and then there are 2 citizen members and members also of all of the taxing entities, except for the school district, all the taxing entities. Board as well. So that's the governing board for our agency. We meet monthly, almost monthly, and establish and give direction for the activities of the urban renewal program. I like to read this every year, and the reason is this is why we're here. This is our mission, and urban renewal is governed by a plan. The plan was originally adopted in 1990, and I'll get into some of that history in a minute. The mission is important, and it's important to remember why we're here and what these funds are used for. The mission of the Urban Renewal Agency is to eliminate blight and depreciating property values within the agency's jurisdiction, and in the process, attract aesthetically pleasing, jobs-producing private investment that will stabilize or increase property values and protect the area's historic places and values. The area that it's a little bit hard to see there with the orange border, but all of our investments are concentrated inside the boundaries, the orange boundaries you see on the screen here. And projects outside the district aren't funded. So all the funds go into this area to raise property values and meet the in a minute. That is composed primarily of our downtown, and a little bit on the other side of the freeway. It extends along 2nd Street into what we call our gateway area. So the history, we've been in the urban renewal business here in the Dalles for a long time, since 1990. The plan was adopted. And then there was an amendment in 1999, all by state law. State law was passed that said we had to put a spending cap on all urban renewal agencies in the state had to adopt a spending cap, and that's called maximum indebtedness, and that is 14.23 million. That was established in 1999, and then a substantial amendment came forward in 2009 that doubled that amount, 29.13. That's where we are. There have been a lot of little amendments along the way, but that's the annually, I've been doing with partnership with the finance director, we've been doing a comprehensive financial plan or an update each year, and that was presented to the Urban Renewal Agency Board in January at their meeting. And what it tells us is we're about in the same place as we were last year, meaning that when you look at our spending cap or our maximum indebtedness, we have used 22.87 million. What's remaining is 6.25 million. That leaves 9.2 million projects. I want to explain a little bit about that maximum indebtedness. There are some details here, and we're going to get into some of those details as we look at the budget. In urban renewal by state law, you can't just spend the money as it comes in. It has to be made debt. Most agencies, when they start up, they're going into debt against future revenues. So we borrow money. And so you'll see in the detail of our budget that we have a debt service fund, and then we have an operating fund or a capital projects fund. And it's called maximum indebtedness for a reason because of that state law. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on that. We do have some cash on hand, and in probably next fiscal year, we'll have to borrow some more money against future revenues in order to get our cash balance back to where we can be funding projects the remaining projects. This year, we have enough cash on hand. Capital Projects Fund, as I just mentioned, there are two funds in our urban renewal program. The first one is the Capital Projects Fund. It's really our operating fund. It's where all the projects are funded, all the projects are built, the staffing is provided, and any consulting needs that we have to support the projects. So let me run through the goals of the Urban Renewal Agency. You have been watching, and I have too, the progress that our developers have been making on the recreation building on 2nd Street between Court and Washington Streets. That storefront has transformed from what used to be a bowling alley with the big rec center, rec building sign on the front to a boarded up storefront, a series of 3 boarded up storefronts. And it's transformed now into 2 completed storefronts with the 3rd one on its way. We are about to close on the 2 storefronts, meaning that we will convey those properties that you see in the right picture there, on that second picture. Those storefronts are currently owned by the agency. We're going to convey them this month, we believe, to Todd Carpenter and Carla McQuaid, who have been developing those properties. Then the 3rd storefront, we have a deadline for ourselves and for the developer about a year from now to get that 3rd storefront completed so we can convey it over to the developer. It's exciting to watch the transformation in this block, and it's really added quite a bit of. I think this is going to be the center of all the activity, kind of the magnetic attraction in the downtown in the coming years. Another project that we've been following for quite a few years, it has a long history. It's our First Street project. And as the scope has changed and morphed over the years, the current scope, and it will be the last scope that we have for this project, is a transformation of First Street. It's a very outdated streetscape. It's also not ADA compliant for disabled folks who are traveling along the street. So we're going to transform that street into a modern streetscape, add some new utility lines, water and sewer lines to the street. Some of those utility lines are over 100 years old. So it will be quite an improvement. We have some federal grant money that, and we have a little savings account that's already been established in one of our funds called Fund 18, the city organization and the city budget. In this, what we do in urban renewal is we contribute dollars to that savings account as needed as the project. About 1.8 million that has been pledged by the federal government. So the goal for this year is to complete the design, the right-of-way acquisition, and the bid documents. Get that closer to construction in the coming year or years. More to come on that project. A lot of good leadership from the one. We are partnered at this time with Oregon Department of Transportation because of the federal money involved. We have to be involved directly with ODOT and out of their Bend office, and they've been good to work with. Tony's building, you might recognize that picture there as the storefront that used to be the Tony's department store at the northeast corner of Washington and 2nd. excuse me, federal, not. And that project, that building has been in agency ownership since 2016, I believe. And the intent there was to buy it, to have it in agency ownership and to partner with a developer. After a few different iterations, we had a developer that we were working with for a while, and that financially became infeasible. So the agency decided to go out for another proposal and see if we could partner up with someone else on it and to use the existing building. And what we found out in that whole discovery phase of that was that the building is full of asbestos and other environmental hazards. So currently, we are gratefully received approval from the board to pursue a grant, federal grant, brownfield cleanup grant to fund the demolition and some of that environmental work. So we are in the process now of applying for yet another Business Oregon grant to fund maybe up to $400,000 for the demolition, asbestos removal. We hope to have that agency agreement in place July 1 so we can do the demo of the building. Once the demo is completed, we will turn that into a shovel-ready development site that will be ready for us to partner with, either sell the land or partner with a developer to create a mixed-use development with the ground floor commercial. See, there certainly is a big need for housing in this project. Can create some urban density in our city and create a neighborhood in our town. Coming fiscal year, we hope to have it all down starting July 1, and I hope to be back here next year and say that we have a flat development site ready for some other things to happen. The board has been working since January of this year on renewing our incentive programs. We have some grant and loan programs that date back to 2003. They're very outdated. There was an update made, I think, in 2011, and they haven't been updated since. We have created a wonderful new program that I believe will really attract some development and some developers to the urban renewal district. It's going to be focused less on loans, more on grants. That's the proposal. We believe, my belief and also the board so far is an agreement that we really need to deliver some return on investment in our agency and in our district on private property, so that we can, when this property all goes back on the tax rolls for all the taxing entities, that they can see increased revenues, more prosperity in our town. So the goal is to get money in the hands of those that are developing properties so that they can develop high quality product, housing units and commercial that can really add more vitality to our downtown, and also get a neighborhood that would have eyes on the downtown. We have some existing loans and that are out on and two of them, the first two buildings, the Honold building is at the southeast corner of 2nd and Federal. You might know the Lilo's Hawaiian restaurant there. That building with housing units above 9 units constructed and opened in 2018. That building has a loan on it, and the Gayer building at the southeast corner of 2nd and Washington. Both of those projects are the recipient. They pay their loan, the development loan, we pay their interest. So that's the incentive that they have. I think the Gayer loan or that program will sunset in 2026, and the Honold, because it was built more recently, that will likely go on for the life of the agency, about 2029, whenever we finish the renewal program. Commodore 2 building, that is a project that we entered into in the early 2000s to take that building from its previous state, which was not occupiable, as I understand it. Had a lot of, it was in a lot of disrepair, and create some affordable housing units on the 2nd and 3rd floors. There is ground floor commercial space, as well as office space on the 4th floor. The way that loan is structured is they make an annual payment to us, And then there will be a balloon payment of about $170,000 in 2026. They continue to make their loan payments, and I hope to meet soon with our city attorney, with the owner of the Commodore 2 building, just to find out what they're doing and find out if they can. Sometimes that building is not as clean on the outside as we'd like, and see if we can get a little bit more attention and investment in that. The blue building actually isn't blue, it's gray, but it used to be blue. And it's at the southwest corner of First and Washington, and that building used to be, well, it's been a number of uses. Dates back to the 1800s. I think it used to be what was called the Model Team Laundry back in the day. And now then it was some kind of auto use, if I remember right, and that's when it was bright blue. Now it's gray, and it houses some business owner who owns the building, conveyed it, the agency owned that property and conveyed it to this owner. And then there are some businesses located that are tenants of that building. The goal, that property owner developer wants to be in for new construction on that building to create up to 16 new units inside of it, and ground floor commercial, maybe a coffee shop or something like that. And then on the basement, it's a walkout basement arrangement on that property. And right behind it is an agency-owned parking lot. They want to buy some of that agency-owned parking lot in order to create sort of a lodging venue, maybe an Airbnb or some sort of a temporary lodging opportunity in the floor of that building. So more to come on that. We are in discussions. Our staff meets with that owner from time to time to progress, but I expect they'll be in line for a development grant. So there is an outstanding loan on that building, and the owner, Mr. Zilka, is making monthly payments. I believe that comes due in lastly, but it's probably the most important thing to do, is we have a little bit of time and a little bit of money, probably about $9 million left in urban renewal. And I think it's going to be wise for the agency to really plan what they want to do, where they want to focus their investments in the remaining years. And so this has been a goal for now for more than a year. We started this process in October, and the manager pulled me away to be involved in the city vision project that is about to wrap up in May or June of this year. So once that gets adopted, we'll get back into the business of doing a strategic. This is going to be, I think it'll be fun. I think the rest of the board would agree that it was the first session that we had when we were looking back at the progress we've made was pretty educational. I learned a lot too, because I'm fairly new. So what I'm going to do now is jump into a description of the different funds. We have the debt service. I just went through the capital projects fund, and this is the debt service fund. This is what I mentioned before. We did some borrowing. I believe it was back in 2009 or sometime there. And we have a repayment that shows us repaying our existing debt in 2029. And this is the fund where we make those payments. You'll see that in more detail. Let me back up. This is an important detail. All debt is paid first. That's the way we do our accounting in this program. And then remaining funds are transferred to the capital projects fund. So if you see in the budget, you'll see that all of the property tax revenue comes into this fund first, and the rest is capital funds. Everything else is transferred out to the capital. So any questions that I can answer, big picture questions for now? We'll get into the rest of the detail.
I have one, Director Cannon, with regard to the strategic plan. I don't know how you quantify it. How close are we to wrapping that up, or is it more like we just got started on it with substantial work? Or how would you characterize how far along that is?
We just got started. So what we did at the October meeting was we went through the history of the program, and the next step was for me and some staff to develop a report card of the existing projects and from the original plan and what we've accomplished, and so that we can have that report card to report out. And then from there, what's left and how much money is left. We giving you that detail, and then develop, have an open discussion and set some priorities from there. I want to get back working on that in June this summer and hope to have it wrap up sometime in the fall. Sooner is better, I think, so that we can really start implementing that.
I think what I remember too is that we wanted to be in sync with the Dow's visioning project.
Mhm.
So so that we're working together.
Our new city manager is in the audience here. He doesn't know this yet, but we are making great progress on the city vision, and our plan is to be back in a discussion with a discussion item at the city council that will report out on the results of the great workshop that we had and the survey results. The survey is open right now for that city vision. It'll close on April 18th, and we will have a report out on manager's first meeting with the city as our city manager on May 23rd, or it's the second meeting of the month. I don't know the specific date, but the goal is to get that vision adopted in June. So I'm thinking that we could start again on the strategic plan in June or July.
Is it anticipated that you would use any kind of a consultant or anything with the strategic plan? I know sometimes places use consultants for that, but that's at this point in time.
We may. I want, as a staff lead, I want to reserve the right to maybe use a consultant to help, because part of the issue I've encountered this year is bandwidth, not being able to devote enough time to it. I can see a consultant being really useful to me in doing the report card. We could have a couple of work sessions, and then I could hand it off to a consultant to create this nice, attractive looking report card, and then move into some other steps that we could use a consultant. That would be efficient and much better quality, I think. Consultant would be better. Chair, are you hearing well enough the questions that are coming up?
It's a little bit quiet, but how about some feedback from the other people on the Zoom? Are you guys able to hear?
Sort of.
Sort of.
It's kind of scratchy. Is this a good? Can I ask a question?
Yes.
As part of the mission statement, protecting the area's historic places and values. I don't know if this is an appropriate place for it, but can Urban Renewal do anything about the Waldron drug? I see on the budget, there's money, $2 million for new undetermined projects. Do you have any comments on?
That's a great question. I don't know. I didn't bring my urban renewal plan. Shame on me. I don't know if that's a listed project for the urban renewal agency in our plan.
Yeah,
it is not, but it would need an amendment if we decided to do that.
So if that ends up being a discussion item this evening, then that could be direction given to the board to consider something in the future. But as of now, it's not a project that can be funded by urban renewal in the existing adopted plan.
I will note, if it's appropriate, that City Council directed staff to look at the Waldron building, do assessments, and come back with current status and a couple of different questions. So that may be something that's getting that we can progress on in a different, through a different avenue.
Yes, that's correct. It's definitely a possibility. I think in this budget year, we've laid out what we want, and we have the Waldron isn't at a point to ask for specific money or a project. So I would imagine that they would make a proposal and come to Urban Renewal, and we would be looking at that for future budget items. But it is definitely something we could do. And if Urban Renewal decided to go that way, we would need to vote and alter the plan, because we cannot do anything that is not inside the plan.
Where is that building?
I couldn't hear that.
Where is the building?
Where is it? It's on the website.
The building is located behind,
Oh.
so if you were on Union Street and you pulled in your car or you walked into the Lewis and Clark Park, you would see it right behind there and it has some historic murals on it. It faces, well, it sits between the freeway and the railroad. Questions, Chair, I'm ready to move into the next agenda item if that's your direction.
Yes.
So what we did last year, Chair, and you and I spoke about that earlier this afternoon, and this was it's been a tradition here in the Dalles for a while about going through budgets, is we go into a detailed review of the budget, and the detailed look begins on 6. There is page 5, but if you look at page 6, it has some items in blue that give some detail behind each of the lines. And that's typically what we've used, or that's what we used last year when we talked through this budget.
Yes. I think it's easiest if we start with page 6 and the breakdowns. And budget committee members are welcome to ask questions as we go on the line items. Just remember that we're looking at the big picture and not necessarily down to the minutia. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm going to tag team with the finance director on this. The budget is broken into 2 categories. We have revenues and expenditures. The first part of this budget is the revenue portion. The beginning balance is the cash on hand. So the money that's available that was unexpended or not spent the previous year. And then, so you'll see that, and there are details below it. You can certainly ask any questions you have. Then the next line is the property tax. Do some projections based on some reports we get from Wasco County tax assessor, and there are some details there about some of the details we used with that projection. Property tax from the prior year, some people pay their taxes late, so we project some of that. And then
I believe if you look over on the left-hand side, you can see that the actual for the 2 previous years and then what we budgeted.
I can't quite hear you.
Sorry. Can you hear me now, Darcy?
Oh, yes, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so if you look at the property tax on the left-hand side of your page, you'll actually be able to see like the actuals for 1920, 2021, and then what we budgeted to receive in 21, 22. And the comparison, it actually is going up to 749, 738. Again, that's not all of our property tax revenue. Some of our property tax revenue, as Alice mentioned earlier, we feed the debt service fund first. And then once the debt service fund is fed, then we move the money that is left goes over to the capital project fund, which is the fund that we're reviewing right now. And then also on the beginning fund balance, this is just an estimate. So we do, around February, we do the budget, and we budget to what we think that we are going to be spending and what we think that we'll be receiving and what we'll have left. So that kind of gives us that beginning fund balance. So that is an estimate. That number can change.
you'll see, I'm going to move the screen over to, you'll see that there is some interest revenue and some loan principal repayment. And the detail there you'll see is that we are anticipating a payment for the final storefront for the recreation building, and then some loan payments, principal payments for the blue building as well. Loan interest repayment on the Commodore 2 building, interest payment with blue building as well. So, have any other questions about revenues, and then we can move into the expenditure side of it. Into expenditures. Right, the first line item is what's called contractual services. We have a great arrangement with Wasco County. They provide outstanding services for mapping. It's called Geographic Information Systems, or GIS. And the Urban Renewal Program pays partial into that program. We share that cost with Public Works and Planning. We pay a third of that cost, and that's what that's for. Contract admin services, that pays for our staffing of the agency. So that pays for my time, Angie's time, Paula, and we have some other staff that work on the program. We are very, we keep track of our hours on our timesheet software so that we only bill the amount of time that we actually work. Some urban renewal agencies that do that differently. We're very specific. We only bill the agency what we actually work. So that's good. We bumped that. You'll see that we bumped that up a bit from last fiscal year, anticipating that we would be spending more time on projects. And so far, I think we're trending that we're going to spend $420,000 this year.
Alice, I think it might help if you scoot that microphone just a little bit closer to you.
I will do that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Auditing services, we do an annual audit for both the city and the agency, and that is reported out in January of each year. So you'll see a cost attached to that. I proposed some money, as we did last year, for some consultant help. We have a consultant that does a lot of annual reports all over the state for agencies. They help us with our annual report. We're required annually to report out to all the taxing entities and to the citizens about our finances. And she is a specialist. She knows how to do those. So we spend wisely, and it's very efficient use of our consulting dollars. I put in, this is a placeholder. We have not spent the money this fiscal year, but we project may need a project consultant to help us with, once we get to the Tony's building, having a development site, and we partner with a developer and start those negotiations and enter into a development agreement with a private developer. We may need some help. So that's what that's for, that next line item. Legal, we do have our in-house legal services, in our staff legal services in the contractual line item. What is the legal consultant then? This question came up yesterday with one of our newer members. The urban renewal consultant, we have $5,000 in there for bond counsel. So in the event next year that we need to go out for a debt, we have another specialized type of attorney that we use for that type of. So that's a special consultant. It will be an outside attorney that we'll use for those services. Last year, we spent a little bit of time, I think a couple of hours, with our bond counsel on some matter, and I can't remember what it was now, but when we need to, it's nice to have those on staff and available to us. I have a capital project management consultant. If you move on to page 7, the first line item, what is that for? I have an engineer helping me with the First Street project, and that is an extension of staff. You really need someone helping interface with our public works staff, but also ODOT, most importantly ODOT, and making sure that that project is meeting our needs. It is our right-of-way facility. Because it has federal money attached to it, we need to have somebody in the Bend area or that has a lot of statewide specific experience working with Oregon Department of Transportation. And that has proven to be extremely helpful to me and to our Public Works Department to have that person on board. Engineering services, that is a previous line item holdover from previous years. It is not proposed to be funded for this fiscal year. The next line item is what's called property rehab. And that is As I had mentioned before, we have some existing loan agreements out for the Honold and the Gayer buildings where we pay the interest and they pay the principal on their development loans. We make those payments monthly to those two projects, the Honold and Gayer buildings. Electricity, we get some big whopping bills for the Tony's building every winter. So that line item goes for that. And then the building and grounds, again, that is just for the property we own. We own primarily that is for the Tony's building, any repair and maintenance on that building, but also maintenance on the parking lots that we own along First Street behind the last stop and near the blue building between the alley and First Street. We have some liability insurance needs. Oh, you'll see next on there is property taxes to pay for those properties that are agency owned. We do pay property taxes. We have some liability insurance for the Tony's building. You'll see that's pretty low this year. We anticipate knocking the building down, so we don't have a big payment there. Postage, legal notices, travel, food, lodging. Some of our staff conferences, if it's urban renewal related, we pay for it out of the next few lines: training and conferences, membership dues, subscriptions. Over the last couple of years, we haven't spent much of that money because it's been all because of the pandemic. A lot of the trainings have been free or very low cost due to the pandemic and doing everything remotely. So next line item, membership dues, subscriptions. We have some memberships with League of Oregon Cities and the Oregon Economic Development Association, the Oregon Association of Redevelopment Agencies. That's the kind of interest group that for all the urban renewal agencies statewide. That's an organization that's good to be a part of. There's some office supplies, books, periodicals, and then moving into capital projects. This is the big dollars. These are our capital projects that I mentioned in the budget message. What we've included here on this line for the Tony's building, asbestos abatement and demolition, what we proposed is the total cost of what we believe the cost of demo will be for both the demolition and the asbestos abatement. We're hoping and pretty confident that we're going to get an Business Oregon grant that comes through the Oregon Brownfield Cleanup Fund in the amount of $250,000 to $400,000. So we hope that we won't spend that total $750,000. We've been a recipient this past year of some environmental evaluation analysis funds through a brownfield grant that the city acquired a few years ago. And I think we have benefited anywhere between $60,000 to $90,000 so far, just with that work. So I've been really grateful for the opportunity to take advantage of grants for this important project. What you'll see next is I mentioned that we have the First Street project, and we have a savings account for that project in what's called Fund 18 in our city budget. We send on an as-needed basis some funds, extra funds over to fund the First Street project. And what's projected for this coming year is $1.1 million. So that is the contribution. Last year it was $50,000. We're moving into, as you know, there's been a lot of inflation in construction costs, and that's just what the project appears to be costing at this time. I may be back next year with needing more money as this project gets closer to construction. A year ago, maybe a little bit more than a year ago, the Parks and Recreation District came to us and asked for contribution, grant match request of up to $300,000. And they did win the grant. That was wonderful. It is to construct a greenway trail between 6th and 2nd Street along Mill Creek. And that'll be a really nice improvement when it's finished. And we will have contributed up to $300,000. And I think that's a over $2 million grant award, if I remember right. I'm looking over at Board Member Kujic. Does that sound about right? Okay.
Maybe a smidge more.
And the last item on this. Did you have a question or anybody else? Okay, maybe a little bit of feedback there. The last item that you see here, capital projects by UR, it says opportunity driven projects. What that is we put everything left in our current allocation of funding. And if a need comes up during the year, our board will hear it and we'll take money from that line item and dedicate it to those projects that are identified by staff and approved by the board later in the fiscal year. So that's Chair. There's a question from Board Member Richardson.
Okay.
Alice, can you speak for just a minute as to the new undetermined projects line item up under property rehabilitation?
Oh, that's a big line item. Okay, we have a very nice, last year this is a big increase. We had $60,000 devoted to our grant and loan program. And we haven't awarded any grants or loans in 2 or 3 fiscal years. That's because we haven't marketed them very well, the programs. And the programs date back to 2003. They're really old, outdated. They're hard to use. They're very hard to implement, hard for us to implement, but also hard for applicants to kind of get through that grant and loan process. So as a result, we haven't invested very much. We have 5 developers who are very, very interested in redeveloping their properties in the agency. And I ran some estimates, and we think that we could award up to $2 million this year with the new grant program that's being proposed and that the board is considering adopting at their May meeting. So that's what that's for. And I'm excited about it because I think in a year or 2, downtown The Dalles is going to look a lot different. And there will be some new housing units in our downtown. And I think we'll all be pleased with that outcome.
So that's money to essentially fuel up our revamped incentives package.
Exactly.
Give incentives that is nearly there.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Yes, Alice, I have just a really quick question. And I didn't completely hear the Tony's building, the 750,000. I think you said something about a $250,000 to $400,000 grant. And so that the 750 estimate is the total cost if we don't get the grants or something like that. Is that accurate?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. That's correct. The total cost is projected to be $750,000. Most of that is for the asbestos removal and abatement. A lot of money. We hope to get some of that frayed through this grant award, which could be between $250,000 to $400,000.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Doesn't look like it, but.
Sure, we can finish with the debt service fund, and I'm going to turn it over to our finance director.
Good evening. So if you turn to page 8, you have the debt service fund proposed budget. Page 9 is the worksheet for it, but there's really not much in the worksheet. We are budgeting to have a beginning fund balance of $799,738. And that is a pretty accurate estimate, as we always leave a extra payment to carry forward to the next year to help make that payment just in case the money is not available. We are budgeting to receive $800,938 in property tax revenue and $4,800 in interest revenue, which gives us a 1.605476 in revenues. The loan principal that is budgeted this year is $575,000, and the loan interest is $227,738, which I'm reserving for $802,738 for a reserve for future payment. This gives us a balanced budget of $1,605,476. If anybody is interested to actually see what our actual payments are and when the payments end, I've provided that page for you for the urban renewal obligations on page 10. And that breaks down the principal and interest payments. You can see that we're getting closer to the end of the page, and we'll have that paid off. Final payment is 2026-27 school year. Does anybody have any questions regarding the debt fund?
Have you take over, Chair.
Okay. All right, so everyone feel like they've had a chance to ask their questions about the budget? Okay. Do we have any members of the public? I'd like to open it for public comment. I don't see anybody. Okay. All right, so there's no public comment. We don't need to set another meeting. We're going to go ahead and finish this up tonight. So at this point, I would entertain a motion for approval of the budget.
Sorry, Chair Long.
Yes.
Can we put the brakes on that for just a minute? I have
Yes.
not a question about the budget, but an item I'd like to discuss, hopefully briefly. And that is, so I guess, board feedback, staff feedback. I'd like to advance. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for the budget. Angie and Alice, thank you for your good work. There's a lot of stuff underway, a lot of items underway. I see 4 substantial items in progress that are great to see. The Tonys, the First Street, the incentives, and the strategic plan. I'd like to see if we could spend just a few dollars this year digging into the idea of a Federal Street Plaza, which we've discussed a couple of times, a little here and there. And I see that we have possibly an appropriate place to draw from. This opportunity-driven projects possibly would be the place to do that. So I'm wondering if you think it would be feasible or otherwise a good idea to spend something on the order of $80,000 or $100,000, draw that out into a separate line item for consultants or other staffing as you see fit, to really just start looking at designs, plans, something the board could use to drive that conversation forward.
So I think and Alice, Dr. Cannon, if I'm stepping on your toes, let me know. But that sounds to me something more like should come to the regular urban renewal meeting. And then because the money is in there as a bulk, and then we separate that out, not at the budget committee level, but at the urban renewal agency level. And that would give us a chance also to do the cost estimates and figure that out, because then we would need to weigh that against what other projects that meant we weren't doing.
Chair, that's correct, but I want to say you're both correct. I think that this is it's a complex project. It will need, this one, as we mentioned at a previous board meeting, might need some city council attention as well. So it'll be one of those, and it might even fall out of the vision project that comes up. And and we've also talked in the past about the sequencing of it, and the fact that the First Street project will shape the plaza, and also the Tonys shape this project. So in the sequence of things, it'll come up, if we have the staff bandwidth to tackle it this fiscal year, it'll come up later in the fiscal year, not so early in the fiscal year. That said, that one option could be, if you wanted to, would be to put a placeholder of $80,000 to $100,000 in the consultants, one of those line items that addresses consulting services if you wanted to. But another option, and I think the chair is right, is that we could make an adjustment later in the budget year to draw from the Opportunity Fund dollars to pay for that project later in the fiscal year. So I think it could be tackled any number of ways, those two different ways, maybe others.
I take your point, Chair Long, that this could certainly fall out later. But I'd also like to build some momentum for that, and having it in black and white in our plan, in our budget, that we are planning to spend this money is something I would encourage. It would hold us as a board somewhat accountable to at least discuss, review, and not forget about.
So how do other board members feel about trying to add a specific project into our overall budget at this point, rather than waiting for our next meeting? I definitely don't think that we are, I definitely don't think we're going to forget about this, and I understand wanting to be accountable for it, but I think there's a number of projects that we want to discuss, and I don't think this one should get preference over that without some background, but I want to hear what the rest of the board thinks.
I don't think that there's any reason to rush this, and I think it would be sensible to bring this before the Urban Renewal Agency and have some numbers ran first before we just add this in as a line item to our budget right now. Excuse me. Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't think we should rush this. I agree that we should have funds allocated to it, but this is a big project that multiple agencies in the city are working on. I don't think it's going to be forgotten about anytime soon.
Thank you, Forrest. Anyone else?
Yeah, maybe Director Cannon or somebody can comment on this, but are there other examples that maybe would fall in line with some sort of guidance with what was proposed? In other words, is there another example to draw from for a decision, based on other items? Are there other? I guess the question is, are there other examples of projects and things that might be similar in scale and cost that aren't on here deliberately, or they don't have a black and white line item in the budget?
That they're not spelled out. Okay.
Yeah.
The answer to that, and I think that question will best get answered in our strategic planning effort. We'll look at all the projects that are currently on the urban renewal plan, and we'll have a report card on what's been completed. And then we can start making priorities as to how we want to spend our remaining dollars. I don't have, I've been really focused on the work that's underway right now, and haven't really been searching, knowing that we have the strategic planning effort coming. I haven't been searching for new projects besides what goals you've already set for us. So I don't have an answer to that other than we do have that strategic planning effort coming up this year where we might get into more detail to answer that question.
Okay, thank you, Director Ellis.
Diana, were you raising your hand?
Yeah, I just would like to bring it in front of the board. I think we need to give it due diligence and time and see where it sits in the prioritization of all the projects we currently have going.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll comment. I think, first of all, I agree with certainly what Diana said. And what I want to say is I don't know what it is yet. So it's a concept, it's a vision that somebody has, and I think it's probably a good one, but we haven't fleshed it out as a board. So I think we should discuss it as an agency board. And if we want to then put it on the priority list, take something off for this year, we could do that. I don't think that Councilor Richardson's going to let us forget about it.
Anyone else?
Darcy, if I might. I agree. It's long been a thought of mine that I agree with what's been said. I think it's a very valuable project, or could be a very valuable project to the businesses and the community as a whole. So for that reason, I understand the urgency to get a line item on there so that we can see it. But even as much as I say that, I think it needs to go through the process, and we all need to understand what it looks like, what it might cost, even just at a very high level. So, unfortunately for that reason, I think it probably needs to not be listed as a specific item, but certainly covered in the next 6 months or something like that. We circle back and visit about it, because I think it could be a very valuable project to downtown for sure.
This was, when I first started here, my predecessor had won 3 different grants, and I had to give them back because they were all queued up. And this was one. This was to plan and build a plaza. It was the highest ranked project for the year, and the Oregon Parks and Recreation Department was very disappointed that we didn't move forward with it. But I just didn't have the bandwidth, just starting out new and fresh and in the middle of COVID, to tackle that project when we had First Street and Tony's building as an earlier priority. So I feel confident that we could flesh this out a little bit more, and even involve the council and do some cost estimating, and maybe even get some grants for it. So it's kind of exciting.
Okay, so I propose that we just add this to one of our discussion items for our strategic plan that's going to come later, and not do a line item. Do I have a consensus on that? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Great. Anyone else have anything they want to discuss before we make a motion to approve the budget? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the budget as it currently stands.
Thank you, Forrest. Do I have a second?
I will second it.
Thank you, Ben. All in favor of passing the budget as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, great. The budget is officially passed. Thank you. Very good work, hard work, everybody. I know it can be confusing, but I appreciate staff for explaining it so well, and I appreciate everyone. I can tell by the questions you asked that you did look through the prepared materials, and I really do appreciate that. I think we have a good committee here. So one thing I want to say before we adjourn is next week we have our regular Urban Renewal Agency meeting, and it's a very short agenda. And so Director Cannon and I were talking, and so I would like to offer 2 options to the group. One would be to meet virtually, so you don't have to come in just for a short meeting. The second would be to have the meeting in person, but do a little socializing afterward, maybe some cookies and coffee or whatever, just because I've had some requests to get to know each other on a more personal level as a group. And so those are, a couple options I have. And if you choose not to do the social thing this time, I still want to add that in at some point, because I think it's good for us to bond as a team. Thoughts?
I think it sounds great.
Wine would be better.
And I'm totally fine with that. I just toss in a couple things out there,
We'll ask our new city manager what he thinks about that.
Yeah, we just it's a really short agenda, but there is something we have to make a motion and discuss. So
It's next week, Darcy, you said?
it is. Yep.
I think we better do it now before we have another surge.
Okay. The
Not
health nurse
predicting
says.
one, but you know, you never know with COVID, right?
Just as a preview, Chair, the only item on that agenda is asking for the board authorization to apply for the Oregon Brownfield Cleanup Fund grant that will help defray the costs of demolition and asbestos cleanup on the Tony's building.
So are you guys, what do you want to do? You want to come in and have that real quick and then just hang out for a little bit and chat with each other before we have another surge? I'm not going to keep you forever. It's just, and it's optional.
What's the date and time?
Oh, it is would that be the 19th, 5:30.
This is for this is the regular board meeting. The budget committee members are welcome, and we'd love to have you so everyone can get to know one another. I think it'd be great.
Yeah, thank you. I was just going to say that. That's great, Alice. Okay. Somebody make a motion just so I'm not like driving this.
Darcy,
Yes.
I have a question on that.
Sure.
Because of my profession's name is Kathy.
Uh-huh.
Would there be an option to still Zoom because of exposures and stuff?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, everyone has, I want options for people.
Okay.
And if some of you, if there's more than one or two, I mean, I don't want to exclude anybody from the socializing. So if you guys, if we're not ready, if there's anybody that wants to do it later, just say that. That's totally fine.
I'm actually with Kathy. I'd rather do it now than in another month, but I'm also in a profession that is highly exposed. So that's kind of where I'm at. So.
And I'd love to do it, but we'll be gone.
You actually need a motion, or should we just do a consensus that let's do the full
I would
meeting
take
with the
I'm fine with the consensus. I just can't see people really well. So I need like verbal.
I'm all good for a good party if everything aligns.
Okay.
Oh, I meant meeting. That's what I meant.
Yeah. It's a party with a meeting attached. Okay, no one's objecting, so that's what we're gonna do. We'll have a meeting, we have a little social thing afterward to get to know each other. Anyone not comfortable with that can leave, and hopefully we'll all stay. And like Alice said, we definitely welcome the budget committee as well. So there's nothing else for the good of the order. I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Appreciate your hard
Good
work.
night.
Good night.